All right, we're back in stewardship. We talked last time about some introductory principles of Christian stewardship, and among the many things we said is that stewardship needs to be taught because it is not natural to us, and it can be taught, it ought to be taught in the church and in every arena that we get, especially as we go through Christian discipleship. And then we ended up talking about 4 areas where we are required to be good stewards: stewardship of the soul, stewardship of the self, stewardship of our substance, and then there was a 4th one, stewardship of our service. So it's not just money, it includes money, but it's not only money. All right, today, right now, we're going to talk about the stewardship of time, stewardship of time. And under time, one of the things that we're going to find out is that there are some things that we can do with time. There are several things that we can do with time. We can measure time, we can pass time, we can spend time, we can waste time, we can lose time, we can throw away time. And because we can do all of these things with time, just like that possessive language that I was talking about before, it makes us think that it belongs to us. I can measure it, I can waste it, I can spend it, I can lose it, it's my time. But the fact of the matter is, when we look at the things we cannot do with time, then it will remind us that time does not indeed belong to us. We cannot control time. You can measure it, but you can't control it. We can't stop time. We can't freeze time. We can't speed up time. You know, like when you listen to a sermon like, ain't he done yet? We can't speed up time. We can't extend time. Now, Hezekiah, you remember when Hezekiah was sick and Isaiah came into the courtroom and told him, you know, God told me to tell you, you're going to die. And Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and said, now, God, you know I've been good to you. You know, and God told Isaiah, turn around and tell him he got 15 more years. Well, Isaiah didn't do that. Hezekiah didn't do that. God did that. Only God can extend time. And then we can't dish out time. We can't see a loved one laying on a sick bed and say to them, okay, I got some more minutes on my card I'm going to give to you. You just can't give time to people. You can put time on your phone, but you can't give time to people. And so when you think about the things that we can do with time, it makes us think it's our time. But then when you think about the things we can't do with time, it ought to register in our mind, this time does not belong to us. And here again, if it does not belong to us, if we have it, if we're responsible for it, if we're accountable for it, then we are indeed stewards, okay? So, number 3, or C here. We do not own time, but we are given time and expected to be good stewards of it. We do not own time, but we're given time and expected to be good stewards of it. And we will be judged on our stewardship of time by, number 1, the test of life. The test of life will prove to us how good a stewards we have been with our time. Let me give you an example. When you come to a test, let's say you take a test in school, let's just say you just take a test here. And you get to the test, and by the time you get to the test, you realize, I don't know any of this stuff. Well, what happened? I don't know none of this stuff. And the reason you don't know none of this stuff is not because you weren't taught, not because you weren't in the class, but because you didn't manage your time. You didn't use your time to focus on the things you're supposed to focus on, and the test proved that you didn't spend your time right. That's all I'm trying to say. That as we go through life, we get to places that will prove to us that we did not manage our time properly to the degree that we were good stewards. So we'll be judged by the test of life. Then we'll be judged by our peers, our families, and our friends. Once we have lived our lives, you know, we don't get to write our own obituaries. Actually, some of us do write our own obituaries, but it's up to our family to actually put it in the paper unedited. And they don't always do it. We write our obituaries by the lives that we live. And at the end of our life, our peers, our family, our friends will judge how we did with our time based on the things that we did. And of course, we'll be judged on stewardship of our time by history. Now, we may not all be in a history book Our names may not be in the index or in the encyclopedia or Wikipedia or some kind of pedia. But the fact of the matter is, since we lived, we are a part of history. And it will be said about us by somebody what we did and how we spent our time. And then, of course, obviously, and perhaps most importantly, we will be judged by God as to how we were good stewards of our time. I should share with you, as you probably already know, it does not really matter how much time a person has, but what they did with the time that they had. People don't realize that Jesus died as a young adult. I mean, if Jesus were going to run for president, he wouldn't have been qualified because he's too young. Had to be 35 to run for president in the United States of America. He was only 33 when he died. But at 33, he did enough in 3 years, because actually his public ministry only lasted 3 years. So he did enough in 3 years for us to still be talking about him 2,000 years later. And we all know people who lived 100 years and we don't even know who they were. Don't even remember their name. Martin Luther King was only 39. He got bridges and streets and schools and everything named after him. So it's not the length of the time that we live, it's the stewardship of the time that we have. And so this is what's important. This is what God is going to judge us by. He's going to judge us by how we were stewards of the time that we had. So we're going to be judged by the test of life, by peers, family, and friends, by history, and by God itself. So let me share some of these characteristics of time. These are some characteristics of time that will help us understand what time is. Number one, time has equality. Time has equality, which means time does not discriminate. Time does not discriminate. Everybody gets the same amount of time. The President of the United States don't get any more minutes in a day than you get. He's living in the White House, he gets 24 hours, and a homeless man living outside under the stars on a park bench, he gets 24 hours. It's equal. Everybody gets the same amount of time. Now, obviously, the president got more resources and more help to do the things in that amount of time than the guy on the park bench. But when it comes to the clock doesn't really care. The clock ticks the same way for the president that it does for the person sitting on the park bench. And so there is an equality about time that we ought to recognize. Secondly, there's a brevity about time. Brevity means shortness. There's a shortness. And, when you remember when you were 5 and somebody told you they were 30 and you said to yourself, how can they even stand up? I mean, can you even walk by yourself at 30? I mean, it seemed like it was so old. It's like, my God, it's like, wow. Aren't you dead yet? 30. But then when you get 29, it's like, hey, what's me? And then you start looking at 40 and 50 and 60, and you get to 69 and 70 ain't that old. And you realize that in an instant, you have moved to that day, to that hour, to that year. Those numbers, those magic numbers, kids, when they get to double digits, like they've gone from 9 to 10, they're in the double digits now, so they're really big. When you get to those big numbers, it's like, wow, I'm finally here, but you get there so quickly. Your children, when they're born, it seems like they ain't gonna never grow up. It seems like they ain't gonna never, ever grow up. It seems like you'll never. I thought we were gonna be dragging bottles and bags and diapers for all of our life. I mean, it's like, oh my God. But you look around, and next thing you know, they grown. And they got children dragging bottles and diapers, and it's so short. Life is short. And it behooves us to kind of pay attention to it because it comes so quickly. So time has an equality about it, time has a brevity about it, and then time has an urgency about it. Because it is equal and because it is short, you got to start doing stuff now. There's an urgency about time. Don't wait. In John chapter 9, Jesus and the disciples came upon a blind man. And the thinking of that day was that in order for a person to be born blind as this man was, he had to have, his parents had to done something wrong, because he didn't do anything wrong because he was blind when he got here. So maybe somebody before him was being punished, or he was being punished for their sins. And so the disciples said, okay, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus said, neither had this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him. In other words, he was born blind, so he'd be sitting at that road so Jesus could come by and heal him. Now, okay, after Jesus said that, then he says this, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day, because night cometh, and when night comes, nobody can work. Urgency. Urgency. I'm not going to be on this planet forever. And because I'm not going to be on this planet forever, I better get in a hurry real quick to do the things that I must do. And there is a sense in which many of us just kind of mosey on through life without a sense of urgency. And I guess that's okay. I mean, you shouldn't be pressed and stressed. But if you don't have that sense of urgency, sometimes you ain't going to get to where you could get to, because you don't have that kind of drive. I don't know what I want to say, drive. That's not what I mean. I mean a consciousness that time is so short and you got to get in a hurry to get things done, because you'll look around and the time you thought you had to do it, you won't have. So there's an urgency about time. And then fourthly, there's an eternity about time. Equality, brevity, urgency, eternity. Now, here's the key. What we do in time determines where we spend eternity. What we do in time determines where we spend eternity. So time is extremely important, because it is the space during which we get the opportunity to determine what we're going to do after time is over. And trust me, the time that we have is infinitely shorter than the time that we won't have after we're gone. So if you live to be 200 years, that's still going to be nothing compared to the amount of time that you will not be alive. So the opportunity that we have in time is to make our eternal destination sure. Now let me share these three things with you. Number one, while we are in time, when we are saved, we get a touch of eternity in time. So we're living in time, and when the Holy Spirit comes into us as we are saved, we get a touch of eternity while we're still in time. And because we receive that touch, we become eligible to spend eternity with God when we're no longer in time. We haven't left time yet, but we got a touch of eternity in time, and we enjoy the touch while we're in time, but that makes us eligible to spend eternity with God when we leave time. All right, that makes sense? Then, once we leave time, we spend eternity with God because of how we spent time when we're in it. Does that make sense? So while we're in time, God comes in, we accept him, we get a taste of eternity. That makes us now eligible to spend eternity with him when we leave time. And so what we did when we were in time is we allowed God to live with us. And because we allow God to live with us in time, when we are out of time, he allows us to live with him in eternity. Y'all got that? So in eternity, there is an eternity in the time itself. There's eternity in the time itself. So these are some of the characteristics that time has that we ought to think about even as we look at time in itself. And then thirdly, we talk about types of time of which we are stewards. These are the types of time that we face, that we encounter, that we are responsible to be good stewards of. First of all, my time. My time. Let's look at Psalm 90. This is a psalm I read all the time, especially at funerals, because that is a time when we're more cognizant of our time. The days of our years, Psalm 90, verse 10. The days of our years are 70 years, and if by reason of strength they are 80 years. Yet Their boast is only labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. Who knows the power of your anger? For as the fear of you, so is your wrath. Verse number 12. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. My time, my time. That's the time that I live. That's my lifespan. It's not my mama's lifespan or my sister's lifespan or my twin's lifespan. It's my lifespan. And I am responsible to be a steward of my time, And to show you just how two people can be in the same place and go different places because they handle their time differently. You know the parable of the rich man Lazarus, the rich man Dives, and the beggar Lazarus. Okay, both of them were there. Dives had this big mansion, and he threw scraps out of his house, at least the scraps from the dogs. It wasn't even his scraps, it was the dog's scraps. And the poor man, the beggar man, Lazarus, went up there and ate the dog's food and so forth. And the Bible says that when they died, the rich man went to hell, and the poor man, Lazarus, went right to the bosom of Abraham. Both of them, same city, same location, same house, but they did different things with my time. And what they did differently with my time had a different result as to where they spent eternity. Point is, we are stewards of my time. There's a degree to which I cannot be responsible for your time. I can help you, I can guide you, I can direct you, I can do all kinds of things, but in the end, you are responsible for your time. All right? Then our times, plural. I'm responsible for my time. That's my own lifespan. But I'm also responsible for our times. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 5, verse 16. And we see a phrase in here that I don't want you to miss. Let's look at verse 15 first. It says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise." And verse 16 says, "redeeming the time, because the days are evil." We are responsible to be good stewards of our generation, of our age, of our day, of our society, of our culture. Not just me, myself, and I, but I'm responsible to be a good steward of the whole society. And as a steward of the whole society, I am called to redeem the times. So, when I fight for injustice, when I try to reverse poverty, when I deal with nuclear war issues, when I try to help people around the world, when I try to end racism, when I try to assist with human rights or eradicate AIDS, and I'm not just talking about me, but I'm talking about people in general, that's redeeming the times. So when I say I'm responsible for my time, that doesn't mean I need to go into a monastery, close the door, sit in the dark, and just light a candle and say, "Ooh." No, I'm responsible for all of the time of my generation. I'm responsible for what happens in my society. I'm responsible for what happens in my nation. I'm responsible for what happens in my world. I'm responsible for the values that go forth in my generation. And so we're going to be held accountable not just for what we did for ourselves, but what did you do in that world that you were in? How did you impact it? How did you change it? How did you redeem the times? Not just redeeming people, but redeeming societies, redeeming cultures, redeeming institutions. That's what the whole civil rights movement was about. It was not just setting people free. It was about redeeming a nation. Because the nation could not be free while half of them were bound. And so part of the freedom of the nation was the freedom of the people, and the freedom of the people was the redemption of the nation. And we are called as Christians not just to deal with my time, but to deal with our times, which has to do with the generation, the age, the culture, and so forth that we live in. See, we are called to be stewards of God's time. God's time. Let's look at Genesis chapter 2. Verse 7, I believe it is. No, that's not the verse I want. But I do want verse number Genesis 2. I'm trying to find here in Genesis 2 where the Lord, okay, Genesis 2, verse 2. Verse 1, 2, and 3. Thus the heavens and earth and all the hosts of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all of his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. God's time is the Sabbath. God's time is the day of rest. One of the commandments, one of the 10 commandments is, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. That's God's time. And we are required to be good stewards of God's time. Now, I'm going to share something with you. I don't know if you thought about it before. If God created the world in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh day, that means that the seventh day belongs to him. So if you got a week, one day belongs to God. That's God's time. When it comes to money, 1/10 of your money belongs to God. When it comes to time, 1/7 of your time belongs to God. Now, the reason why that's scary is because most people think they really doing a whole lot working for the Lord. But when they add up all they do in a week, they don't even come close. Okay, so let's try it. Let's try it. Somebody be the mathematician here. See how we're doing. Okay, let's say we go to church on Sunday, and let's say we spend 3 hours in church. Sermon was long, and the choir sang too many songs. Let's say it's 3 hours. Okay, so that's 3 hours. Then we stay an hour and a half for Sunday school. How many is that? 4.5. Okay. Then we come back on Monday night because we got Bible. We got a class like this. Okay. So that's 3 more hours. How many hours is that? Okay. Then we're gonna go to Bible study for 2 hours. How many hours is that? All right. Let's say we go to prayer meeting for another hour. How many hours is that? How many? 10 and a half hours. Okay. So now we're gonna go to choir rehearsal. All right, let me give you 3 hours for choir rehearsal because y'all really don't know how to sing. You need some help. So that's, how many is that, 13 and a half? Okay, so now you come back for usher practice on Saturday. Okay, let's give you an hour for that. How many you got now? 14 hours. Now you done all that, which is a lot, and you still 10 hours short. Hello. Can I include the time I said, oh, Lord, I'm here? Yeah. You can include prayer time. You can include study time. But my point is this, that if you really think about it, God really wants your time more. He wants more of your time than he wants of your money. The Sabbath principle is not only that God rested and we should rest, but that time belongs to the Lord. It belongs to God. And we are going to be held accountable for what we do with the Lord's time. Now, I know I hope to God, we're going to be in trouble, y'all. We're going to be in serious. You know why? Because back in the day, like 1,000,000 years ago, you couldn't do nothing on Sunday. You couldn't even wear your play clothes on Sunday. You get up, you go to church, you eat, that's it. Now, please. You go to the early service. By 10:30, you out of church. You on a golf course, especially if you're like us. We right next to a golf course. You be on a golf course by 10:35. Then after you do that, then you go to breakfast. Go to buffet. Then after you go to buffet, you go to the movies. After you go to movies, then you go to the mall. After you go to the mall, you come home, watch some HBO. After you do that, then you watch the game. Hello, the Lord's Day. Don't talk about going to no 2 services on Sunday. Are you kidding me? That's too much, Reverend. That's too much. The Lord get the whole day. The whole day, not just, one service. So when we talk about God's time, we got to be sensitive to the fact that there should be spaces carved out in our schedule that say to us, this is the Lord's time. Because we're going to be accountable not just for my time and our times, but God's time. Now, I got our time in my time. I got God's time in my time. And so I have all of that inside of me while I'm inside of it. Run it by you again. If I had a picture, I could show you a lot easier. But as a person, I'm in the midst of our time. So I live in this age. And I live in the time that God is God. So I am in our time and I'm in God's time. But by the same token, the age is in me because it influences the way I think, the way I look, the way I act, the way I behave. And God is in me. So there's a dialectical relationship between my time, our time, and God's time, in that it's in me and it's outside of me, working on me at the same time. You understand? So this dialectical relationship is not like it's my time over here and our time over here and God's time over here. It's like my time and our time and God's time is all inside of me and all outside of me.